Hi, I'm Linda Fanaris, host of B2B Brand180 podcast and CEO of Millennium Agency. And we're here to talk about branding, marketing, and lead generation strategies. But before I start, I just want to thank our listeners today. And if you like what you hear, please like, share, or subscribe to help our channel grow. I'm super excited to bring in Cody Schneider from Draft AI, and he's scaled companies from 20 million to 120 million in valuation in 6 months. And now he's really focused in on AI. Now, we have been talking about AI a lot lately, but what we're going to discuss today is how marketing teams can use AI to scale their workload and scale their business. So, welcome, Cody. Thanks for coming to the
Thanks for having me,
B2B.
Linda.
Yeah, it's great to have you today.
Super
So let's
excited.
no, I'm excited too. I'm excited to see how we can all implement this into our business. So let's just start with a quick introduction, Cody. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'll just high level, worked in B2B marketing agencies for forever, then somehow ended up in Silicon Valley working at an early stage startup there. One of the things that I really piloted and kind of brought to life was our content marketing engine. So what we were focused on was how do we build some basically a owned media that we could have for distribution and then use that as leverage within negotiations. We were a three-sided marketplace. So we had customers and then we also had people that were selling on platform. And so we needed a way to basically create distribution. And so that's what I did there. We took that company from a $20 million valuation to about 110, 20 in about 6 months. It was honestly crazy. It was one of those curves you live for, right? Where it's just like
Right.
exponential up and to the right. And yeah, so we scaled headcount. I was just hired as like employee six there. We scaled headcount to, I think when I left, it was like about a year later and we were at 70. So it was one of those things like 0 to 1, which is wild. And then so I left that company and then did some consulting. And then really quickly we saw this was in July of this last year that AI was finally getting to the point where it was actually usable as a marketer. And so everybody I knew that was in early stage startups was like, okay, how do we basically start to employ this technology to scale out our content production process? And so that's really what I've been building for the last year and a half is these types of tools that help marketing teams really like scale out their content marketing production.
So let me ask you a couple questions just on your background, and then we'll touch into the AI stuff. So to help these teams grow as quickly as possible. But it sounds like you've had some multiple startups. I mean, do you have some tips that you would give entrepreneurs who are just starting out in their industry and in their market who really want to scale?
So kind of two things. First, it depends on if you're self-funding or if you're going, the
Mhm.
traditional VC backed route. So if you're self-funding, build some type of engine that spits off cash flow. So you have that free cash flow to basically parlay it into like whatever that product is that you're creating. What I see a lot of people do is building a digital agency. They scale it to, 20-ish people. And then at that point, you typically have enough where it's like, okay, I can go hire an offshore team and create some type of software that
Right.
serves this customer that I'm also serving. So that's a lot of the times the playbook in the self-funded route. If you're VC backed, it's
Right.
basically find product market fit as fast as possible and grow as quickly as you can and deploy that capital as quickly as you can. What I see work most often is full companies. And this is for both of those, whether it's self-funded or VC backed and you're in software as a service, is focusing on 1 to 2 channels. That'll get you to like that first million ARR, or like
Right.
yearly reoccurring revenue. A lot of the times it's some type of display ad and cold email. Like I've seen,
Right.
5 companies in the last 2 years do it with just that. At that point, then you can start thinking about, okay, what are these other marketing strategies and tactics that I can layer on top of that? But really those, I like to talk about it as like, it's transactional marketing in that first, $1 million. Like you're trying to do something where it's like, I do an action and immediately there's a response.
Right.
And then after that, that's when I start to invest in that those more longer term payoff strategies, whether that's SEO or I build, organic social accounts or
Right.
I build a newsletter, et cetera. So
That's great insight for our audience today. Are there certain marketing strategies that you think work better in companies? I know it's going to depend on the audience, the target, but I think for somebody that's starting out, if you do keep that target audience in mind, are there key tactics that they should be really employing that will be as successful as possible? I mean, you just talked about cold calling and email marketing. I mean, that's very doable. Direct mail is even doable. So just
totally
curious.
more doable than ever before. Also, yeah,
It's true.
yeah, we sent like I think it was 100,000 flyers through an AP.
Mhm.
There's direct mail APIs now, and you have access to the zip code data is actually really, really rich now. thinking,
is.
okay, cool, we can hit this whole area. I did this for a company that was in the real estate space. They were based out of Houston. And it was honestly, I was shocked how cheap it was. It was cheaper
Right.
than that than Facebook ads. I'm like, where did we end up here?
It's
But
true.
But yeah, to answer that question, I think the biggest mistake I see founders make most often is they don't identify where their customer is spending time online or offline from the beginning, right? They think they need to be everywhere. And in reality, there's probably like one or two places where the majority of information and people are. So as an example, you don't need to be on Twitter. Your audience isn't on Twitter. So if you're like in the women's health space, that's probably not where your audience is most likely. They're probably more on Instagram or Facebook. So investing in those places where your target customer is most likely.
Right.
And then I think the other thing tactically is just do things that are repeatable. You're
Mhm.
trying to build processes that I can do over and over and over again. Focusing on those two things, I feel like often just create way more impact for early stage companies rather than trying to do a ton of things. It's like, again, focusing on those one or two channels and just hitting the pavement really. It sounds so simple, but in reality, it's just that, right? If I send 100,000 cold emails to my target audience, probably going to get customers out of that. So it's figuring out
Exactly.
how do I do that, right? So
Exactly. That's great because I think what happens is a lot of marketers will try a different, several, all kinds of different mediums, and then they realize, like, okay, how do we track all this? So the
totally,
tracking gets lost and they're not able to actually scale based on what they're doing because what's happening is they're doing too much, it's too fragmented, and they're not able to focus on anything that's actually successful versus something being
100%.
unsuccessful. So I think I love that tactic that you're talking about. How do we focus and how do we build out processes that actually work? So maybe you're focused in on an industry or two, and then maybe you just focused in on a marketing medium and or two, and then okay, how does that look when we're done? Is
Totally.
that
And I
actually
think that
work? Go ahead.
totally an example of that is like, okay, say I'm trying to sell software to funeral homes, right?
Mhm.
I go find every person that works at a funeral home's email. I use a tool like Apollo.io. They basically scrape LinkedIn and then they find all these
Right.
emails and validate them for you. I take those emails, cold email them. That same email list, I can upload that into Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, and it does a customer match list. And then I do display ads to that same audience. So what from a user, like what they experience is they get a cold email from you and then they're seeing you everywhere on social. So really quickly, you can start to own that mental real estate with just those actions rather than, okay, we're going to spin up a YouTube channel and a podcast. And now we're going to do Twitter and we're going to do Instagram reels. It's like, no, like that, those two actions together, that's
Mhm.
not super complicated, but that can get that business off the ground again, that 0 to 1. And that's where I've spent a lot of my time. So I'll probably talk about that more. Getting to scale is a whole other thing, right? Where it's like, how do I manage a 100-person marketing team? Like,
Exactly.
be effective there, right? But so anyway,
Yeah, and that's also you brought up a great point because I think what happens is when you're identifying a list or you're identifying your perfect or your ideal customer, okay, who are they? Where are they located? What type of industries are they in? What are all those questions? And then you are pulling that list, and then you're repeating some different tactics and strategies within that targeted list. So you're not just hitting them once and forgetting about it because I think that's another thing that happens with a lot of marketers, like we talked about earlier. It's fragmented. Let's try this. Let's try that. Nothing seems to be working. This worked okay. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's really identifying who your ideal customer is and then building out a model or a list that you can just target in multiple different mediums. It could be Google, it could
totally,
be it could be direct mail, email
totally.
marketing. And that's that 360 approach that really can make a difference. It's great. So tell me, so you're the founder of Draftforce. So how has AI actually transformed your ability to generate content at scale?
I mean, it's crazy. I don't like so just for context, we built a company originally that was like content repurposing. So you give it like a video, say you give it a webinar and it's I can make clips and I can make articles and make tweets and LinkedIn posts. It basically transcribes it and transforms into like whatever that media is that you're trying to publish. We built an internal tool to do SEO at scale. So write SEO articles at scale. I was talking about it in public on Twitter. People were like, hey, I want that tool. So we ended up spinning it out of this other company. It went viral, and that's what became Draft Horse. But basically, what we've seen and how I'm thinking about it more and more is I'm looking at the processes that my marketing teams were doing previously in the content production space. So like what are those, which of those pieces can I abstract and like have AI augment? So as an example, with just to use Draft Horse as that example, like if I wanted to write content previously, I go and I would do keyword research. I would then build out a template for the article that I want written. I would then hand it off to my article writer, and then that article writer would write it. A copy editor would edit it. They would then publish it, and then it's live on the website. And we did try to get that index basically so that we can do organic traffic. What we found is that AI is really good at building out the article template and writing the articles. And then we
Okay.
can just build an integration that publishes, directly to our WordPress site as an example.
Right.
And so traditionally, like if I wanted to write 1,000 articles and I hired article writers, that would
Hmm.
cost me $100 per article. So that's 100 grand that I would spend as a company. And that's, traditionally when I would go to an SEO agency, like that's a huge part of their cost structure, what their upcharging is. So now, with AI, I can take that same 1,000 articles, I can write it for like $500. So that's the arbitrage that exists here. And so this is what we just like, we're like, let's just publish, like
Right.
25,000 articles to a website and see what happens. Right. And so we did this in the health space as an example.
Yeah.
And it now gets over 1,500 clicks per day. It drives like hundreds of ebooks downloads, and then that's just like lead gen into telehealth company. So this was like a partnership that we did. But we're seeing this like it can be applied in every space. And an example of this is I'm looking for these keywords that are very transactional and related to my
Right.
business. For example, I have like a software that's SMS marketing, right? So it's like SMS marketing for hotels, SMS marketing for doctors, SMS marketing for, XYZ. Okay, I find all of those keywords, I write all of this content, I publish it. And I'm like, it just increases the volume and reduces those
Exactly.
costs. And so I'm just creating like a wider net than I used to be able to previously. And then again, we're seeing this both like I call that commodity content. So it's like
Mhm.
using the general knowledge of the AI to write. But there's even like a layer down from that where I can go and I can interview industry experts. So like say
Right.
I go talk to 5 cybersecurity people about, let's say like identity verification, right?
Mhm.
And I can then record those conversations and I can use that transcript as source material and say, okay, now we want to write about keyword X, keyword
Okay.
one, keyword two, keyword three. We basically can limit the AI to say, this is that source document that I want you to pull the knowledge from. Use your general writing capabilities, but use this as like where you're going to, source that information. And that's how we can create this like branded content that nobody
Right.
else has that's based off of industry expert knowledge and insider information. So there's kind of these two different ways to do this. But we're seeing companies employ this like in both ways because they're trying to be everywhere, right? Like
Exactly.
I'm trying to create thought leadership content and I'm trying to create that commodity content. So
Right.
let's do both of those things. And these are these different ways that we can use AI to employ that. So
Yeah, that's a good point because obviously Google loves relevant content. So if you're busting out a lot of content for a website and it's relevant, then obviously they like that. So that makes sense on how that all works together. So before we get to our next question, I just want to take a minute and thank our audience today for listening in. And if you like what you heard, please hit like, share, or subscribe, and also provide a review to B2B Brand 180 podcasts. So, Cody, what trends do you actually see that are maybe emerging that industries could take a look at in the coming years? Because everything is changing so rapidly, I think, right now, and we've seen huge changes over the last 10 years. Is there anything that you could see as far as disruptive tech, industries and technologies that are coming around the corner?
yeah, I think search is so screwed. And just to like be blunt, I just saw data that was showing that Gen Z trusts TikTok search more than it trusts Google. And they're going there for all of their basically like discovery, right? And education and all of this. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it. If I have an AI now that can just bulk generate content
Right.
and I'm trying to sell this product, right? There's less trust that's baked into that with like a random website than there
Mhm.
is if like, okay, I'm a content creator and it's my face and I'm telling you that this is a solution to the problem that you just searched on TikTok
Exactly.
and Reels. So that's a huge trend that I'm seeing change. I think the other thing that we've been seeing just in the data from like all of our clients, like we work with a bunch of media producers, right? That are like some of them have, 400 shows, right? And so it's they're
Right.
publishing like 1,500 different pieces of content, like long, like hour long pieces of content each month. But The thing we're seeing with them and hearing from them is that content that is less refined is doing better. So like when it's overproduced or it feels like it doesn't feel like it's social native. So people
Right.
are wanting things that feel like they're coming from their social media applications, right? Like something that you would make in Instagram or something that you would make in TikTok using their, basically editing tools. We're seeing both that content get more reach, like provide more business value because it doesn't feel like I'm being sold in a way. And that's like really what we've kind of come to the conclusion on.
Right. Right.
It's more raw and providing me value rather than trying to convince
Well,
me of this. And we're seeing this more and
mhm.
more, especially in early stage companies where they'll just hire a content creator. And this is probably the third trend. That's like the big thing. It's like we're starting to see people on salary. Their title is YouTuber, right? Or like TikToker.
Right.
And
Right.
like their whole job is you just make content on that platform. And your measurement of success is how much did the platform, what is our follower growth? What's our monthly
Mhm.
impression growth? And how
Mhm.
much inbound traffic did you provide to the website? And then how they
Right.
measure the value of that is, say they were focused on TikTok as an example. If they ran ads on TikTok and we saw that the CPC for this audience was $1, but this person
Mhm.
is producing CPCs, based on their salary and like how much time they're spending, the CPC that they're producing is 10 cents. That's the arbitrage.
Right.
Their salary is all I'm paying for that organic reach. But
That-
I think that this is every company is starting to think about this more and more is how do I become a media company? And like, how do I enable my team to do that? And you're seeing these, again, a lot of early stage companies and kind of these middle, just because they can move faster. I think this will naturally bubble up into like the Fortune 500, et cetera. But they're publishing like a team of 3 people is publishing more content than Fortune 500. Like what's happening? That
Exactly.
is crazy, right? And so that's how we're seeing these companies, especially what these AI companies, they're going from 0 to 10 million ARR in like,
Exactly.
24 months. And the reason they can
Exactly.
do that is because they're, again, like just producing so much of this content and tapping into the natural reach that's happening on these platforms. So a final thing, again, this is all related. So all algorithms are like social algorithms are moving for what's called like for you page content.
Yeah.
The for you
Yeah.
page content is the when the social platform is just showing you the thing that it thinks you're going to have the most likeliness to like interact with and watch, right?
Right.
So
Right.
TikTok they basically started this where it's like, okay, we're just going to show you random stuff from accounts of people you don't know. And then
Mhm.
whatever keeps you on the platform as much as possible. That's why people are like, oh, I'm addicted to TikTok, right? So
Exactly.
Instagram Reels is the version of that. YouTube
Yeah.
Shorts is the version of that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
LinkedIn is it starting to do the same thing where it's just like, it just
Exactly.
shows you random people that are not even in your network, but it's going viral. So that's right. So that's kind of all these things combined together. That's where we see like the opportunity for businesses. It's figuring out that now, like, okay, how do I actually build a process around this, which is the hardest part, right? Like, do I go hire a 21-year-old that's fresh out of
Exactly.
college to run our TikTok? What, they have no business context. So like, how do I train them so that they don't say something like absolutely rogue and that,
Right.
absolutely, decimate their
Right.
stock price or whatever. Right. So
Exactly.
anyway,
No, that's great. Do you envision any risk using AI and encountering duplicate content
yeah, that's
along?
a great question. So what we saw, so like Google released their policy on AI in particular in February of 2023. They basically said, we don't care how content is generated as long as it provides value. I think that set a precedent for the whole space. If it provides value to the audience, we don't care where it really comes from. And we're seeing that on TikTok as well, right? Like we're seeing in YouTube shorts in particular,
Right.
these like history YouTube shorts, you can tell it's 100% AI generated, but it's,
Exactly.
this thing's about Napoleon and it's talking about like, here's his tactical battle
Mhm.
strategies and that gets 10
Exactly.
million views. So I think on the duplicate content side, the thing that we keep telling like all of our clients and customers is, hey, like think about like what is my unique voice, style, and tone, and
Right.
how can I get the AI to basically write in that and provide this
Yeah.
unique perspective? And again, going back to that idea of like, I'm going to go interview industry experts and then take that knowledge and then turn that into a piece of content. That's the way that that's the only way that you're going to be able to differentiate in this field,
That.
right? It's and it's what we were doing previously. Like journalism is just that, right? Like
Yeah.
interview
Exactly.
people, tell the
Yeah.
story. Like Marketing with AI as this tool is the same thing. Interview people, tell a story that solves
Story.
the problem. So
But like you said, it has to be in the voice because otherwise, if we both ask, AI the same question, are we going to get the exact same answer? I don't know the answer to that. So,
totally, totally. Something I just like a quick hack for
yeah.
people. If you're like, how do I get AI to like me?
Mhm.
Record a video of you talking for 5 minutes about a topic.
Mhm.
Take that transcript, drop it in, and define the tone, style, and voice of this transcript. And 2 minutes later, you have a style guide that's a mirror. It's going to
Wow.
be super close, like mirroring what you are and
Right.
like who you are and who the company is. And then just use that within your prompt chain every time that you're,
Exactly. That
making
makes
any
sense.
type of content. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
super
Yep.
quick and easy way. You don't have to
Mhm.
go hire some agency that you're going to spend, 20 grand to figure out like, what's my AI style guide.
No, that's great. That's great feedback for our audience today. What advice would you give to others looking to leverage their brands for growth? I mean, are there opportunities there that you think might be valuable?
I think it depends on where you are in the stage of the company. Early stage, it's just survival, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
how do I
Mhm.
get to a place where I'm sustainable as fast as
Exactly.
possible? I like to describe it as it's just like a financial portfolio. When I'm young, whatever, 80% of all the money I make goes into me surviving,
Right.
housing, healthcare, food, etc.
Exactly. The basics. Yeah.
As I age, like that portfolio adjusts, just like our financial portfolio. And I just using that as an analogy for companies and they're kind of their lifespans as well. When you're an early stage company, it's just get customers at all costs for,
Right.
in whatever way you can. But as you start to mature, maybe it's year 3, year 5, etc. That's when you can start thinking about, and it really just depends on like where you are in that. It can be earlier too, depending on how fast you grow. But that's when you can start thinking about, okay, now how do I build own media? Because the brand and a really easy way to measure brand is just like how many organic searches are happening for your company's brand name, like on
Right.
Google, right? And so that's something that we track. What's the month over month growth of our brand name searches and the impressions that we get for our brand name?
Mhm.
And that's just a measurement of what is the brand value, right? So,
Right.
okay, we did these activities, did it add to the brand value?
That's great. So, Cody, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today before we wrap up?
There's 2 things. For companies, we're in a transitional moment. Like, this is a
Mhm.
base technology change. It's just like mobile and what that did to the entire internet. This is every company is going to be an AI company, right? Like, just like every company,
Exactly.
like, has to be a mobile company. Okay? Even if you're a restaurant, you have a mobile menu now.
Mhm.
It's the same idea. So I think the slower or the more pushback company, and I'm seeing this in marketing organizations where they're like,
Yeah.
AI can't do this like what we do.
Right.
And then it's like, my friend runs this agency where all he does is he like goes in over the top. He looked at the processes of companies and we can automate all of these things. He automates it all. And then he's like, sweet, like we just automated 60% of your processes. And it's like, it's now more consistent with less errors and
Right.
costs you, 90% less than what it did previously. Adopting this is
Mhm.
going to be super necessary. The other piece is there's a long time horizon for that adoption, right? People are like, oh, you have to do this in the next 12 months. I don't think that's it at all. You have 3 to 5 years to figure out how this fits in. There's no need for panic, but this is going to change everything, especially on the marketing side, because it makes
Yeah.
people superhuman. If I have a team of 3 people that are 10x players,
Right.
it makes them 100x players, right? Well, we have the same staff, but now we can do 5x what we were previously with the same amount of salaries. And it's less work for our team, right? Because it's
Right.
less of the deleterious, mind numbing work. And they get to focus on the creative pieces. And so suddenly, a great example of this is a company called Boring Marketing. They're an
Okay.
SEO, AI
Yep.
SEO agency. And they basically, what used to cost you 30 grams through a traditional SEO agency, they can do for 3 grand because like all their processes are like augmented by AI. And that's a great
Okay.
example where I talked to their founder a couple months ago and they were 9 months old and already doing like 750,000 or so. That's an example of how these tools can be employed. It's just, again, looking at what you're doing, what can I automate? What can I offshore?
Exactly.
And then the rest of it is
Exactly.
that's where I like have my team focused on those high
Yeah.
touch. That's where the smart people are focused. So
Yeah. Could be strategy or some high level. That's great.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, I loved having you on today, Cody. That was great. I got some great insight from what you had to share.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for hosting me.
No,
It's
I,
always fun to come and, talk to the
yeah,
industry. So
yeah, definitely. So I would love for you to tell the audience how they can get in touch with you.
yeah,
So I'll
yeah.
turn to you for a minute.
Yeah. So You can find me on Twitter. If you just Google Cody Schneider, it'll probably come up. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well. Those are kind of the two places that I'm talking about all this. And then the websites of the companies are drafthorseai.com and swelলাই.com. And those are the two projects that we're working on that are focused on AI-driven content marketing. So
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to our B2B Brand 180 podcast today, and we hope we found the insights and strategies shared to be valuable and actionable. Again, I'm Linda Faneris, host of the B2B Brand 180 and CEO of Millennium Agency, and you can visit us online at mil.agency or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And just to help our channel grow, please like, share, or subscribe. And thanks again for listening. And until next time, happy marketing. Thank you.